I am going to, before we get started, we did have students who spoke with each one of the candidates prior to our interview. And so you have two, you should have had one at the, at your desk when we first got here that says student reflections. And then this is the one from today. So these are the comments that the students had to make. I'm going to turn it over to you to help guide us through the rest of this process.
I don't want to mess up. Do I need to sit here? Can I?
If you want to be heard on the final recording, yes. And I think they want to be able to hear you, so.
Yeah.
You're in a hot seat now.
Look at him being shy.
I'll do the best I can. So there are two tasks that need to be completed yet this evening. The first task is to narrow this pool of candidates from 4 down to 2 that we would bring back as the 2 final candidates for the position. The second task after we do that is to determine when are we going to bring them back. When are we going to deal with a second interview? Because remember, typically now, it's not just the interview with the board. Typically, we would ask those final candidates to come back and spend time in the district during that day and to meet with various stakeholder groups throughout the course of the day, who would then complete for you some public comment sheets that would indicate the strengths that they see various candidates bringing. And then in that evening with a second interview with the Board of Education, that would be about an hour in length. So it's more than just the interview with the board. It's the time that we would have available for stakeholders across the district. So first things first, we need to think about narrowing the group. And very, very clearly, I think you've had 4 professional educators before you who have come forward in good faith and offered their services to this school community as your next school leader. And so as we go through this process, I think it's really important that we make sure that we preserve their professional reputation intact. And so as we discuss these candidates, we're going to focus on the positive attributes that each of those 4 people would bring to the district, as opposed to negative attributes about them. The recitation of negative attributes in a public forum goes right back to the home districts of where those people are working at, and oftentimes really diminishes their professional career in those communities. So we don't want to do that. So we've got our little process that we're going to use. We're going to begin with an opportunity for anyone in the audience who has sat through these interviews, who has identified some strengths in one or more of the candidates that they'd like to share with the board before you move forward to narrow the field. We want to provide them an opportunity to do that. And so when I'm through speaking, we'll invite them one at a time. I'll call them if they just raise their hand to come up to this place at the table, your turn to be in the hot seat, and to stipulate your name, and then to share with the board your thoughts. Don't tell the board who to hire. Tell the board the strengths that you see them bringing to the Dearborn Public Schools. Again, remember what your mother always told you: if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. Your silence will speak volumes. So we're going to focus on the positives. And then after they have had a chance to speak, we're going to provide an opportunity for you as board members to share your thoughts and perceptions with your board colleagues about the strengths that whichever of those candidates would bring to the district. You may speak to only one candidate, you may speak to all of the candidates, your choice. When you're done sharing your thoughts, I'm going to ask each of you to focus on not more than 2 of those 4 people. And as we go through that process, I'm going to continue to poll you as to whether or not you want to continue to pursue the candidacy of any of those 4 candidates. But we're going to do it in a way that is a process of elimination as opposed to a process of accretion. We'll take people off the board, and that will occur through all 7 of you agreeing that given the caliber of the other candidates, you choose not to pursue one or more of those candidates. And I'll walk you through that very slowly. It'll be pretty simple. So let's move forward and begin by seeing if there's anyone in the audience who would like to share with the board your reflections on any of the 4 candidates.
Good night, everyone. I was no use saying the good evening. We're far past that.
Yeah.
I'm William Ollie. I'm born and raised in Dearborn. I've had 4 kids go through, well, one leaving Etzelford this year, but part of the collegiate program. One going from Salida to Etzel. One at U of M Dearborn, one at Henry Ford. So I'm a product of Dearborn Public Schools. Good thing. But I've been involved with many task force and things in community-related, things throughout 25 years. Through my experiences in that, in dealing with Mr. Maleko, I'd like to talk a little about Mr. Maleko, someone who's been here like 16 years.
20.
20 years at least, yeah, I've lost track. I just know of his experience with the Arab American community. That's one of the reasons I mentioned that, because I feel it's very important to know what you're getting into, to know what how to deal with the community abroad in its diversity already. I think we're on a good roll right now as a city. He's very qualified. He has a lot of experience, very educated. And I know working with him through the school district and as a parent, I've never seen no one buy the book more than him. I think he's a great choice.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you being here. Anyone else like an opportunity to address the board?
Good evening or good night. My name is Adib Mozub. I graduated from Fortson High School. Right now I work for Wayne State University. I'm doing my PhD in education. But also I'm very involved with Dearborn Public School. I'm part of the Salina community and Etzelford community group that we meet with Mr. Whiston and his group and community groups each month to review data, programs, and to try to promote higher education and get students ready for college. For tonight's subject, which is choosing the next superintendent, I would like to see is someone who's innovated, someone who's been passionate about his career, and someone who's experienced as well. And I think Dr. Maleko exemplifies all of these. And also he has experience in all levels of education, elementary, since even Salina is composed of middle, elementary, and elementary and middle school. And also he lead with passion. That's, I think, the thing that attracted me to him and talked to him when he was in Salina, and we go and we try to volunteer for play basketball with the kids before they go to their classes. He opened the doors. He come and play with us. He's passionate about what he's do. And I think talking also about understanding both communities and also the city is, I'm not say divided, but as it's mixed. So he has the experience of working in both the east side and the west side, and he gathered that both. And also speaking also on the positive side, I think if the poll need to be narrow to two, Dr. Jael Shakeman been very experienced leader and very committed to her role, and she has been very cooperative and cooperative with us as a community group, asking a lot of tough questions, asking data. And this is actually, we've been working with the schools since 2009. This is the first night I come and approach the board, because it has been our philosophy to work with the administrators first and not come to the board unless we need to. And we have not come to that point where we need to come to you. So that speaks also to Mr. Whiston leadership. And so thank you for giving us the opportunity, and I think I said too much. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Rod Alawan, and I live in Dearborn. And I first want to say to the board that You did an excellent job in narrowing this field down to 4, because it is a difficult decision. Whatever decision is made, I trust you will make the right one, as you have. We've known you the past 7 years. Really difficult. Dr. Maleko brings, as the two people mentioned, plenty of experience in different arenas. More recently in central office, in human resources and student services, dealing with budgets and working with Sam, and a lot of those financial decisions go past his desk. And we all talk about the 21st century superintendent. Well, that's important this day and age because of the money tree just isn't shaking from Lansing anymore. That's just, that's the way it is. So many positives there. And Dr. Shankman has carried out many of the initiatives in this district. Our experience with Dr. Shankman has been in and around the district, and especially during the bond and also the Henry Ford Collegiate Academy and getting people on board. Dr. Shankman does a lot of the grunt work, and so a lot of positives there as well. The two candidates here today, Dr. Wilson and Dr. Wagner, the last one tonight, it's kind of, sometimes it can be challenging to keep an open mind, but if you think about, you have to keep an open mind because the person who's been here for 7 years, maybe none of us would have ever thought he would have been able to empower his staff to do the things that you have. And he was an outsider, right? And he really didn't have any experience with ethnic communities. He's mostly in Lansing or Oakland County. And so, that the fact that Dr. Wilson has been in different places and really in different positions and handled different situations and is able to still talk about that and still hit on the dual enrollment and wanting to reach all student learners, not just a certain segment of it. As was the case with Dr. Wagner, his strength is, it's kind of like you're listening to Brian in a way. Management style, emphasis on early college with Dr. Wagner, as well as dual enrollment, and about making sure, again, not only your lowest achievers or most economically challenged students, but your gifted students as well. So there seems to be a plan in place, and he was just ready to go with that plan. He owned it. He used the word our and we, and I'm kind of impressed by that, somebody who does their homework. So there's a lot of positives there. And I know both of these candidates came to Dearborn weeks ago just to kind of scout the area and to talk to people about, what they like about Dearborn Public Schools. And I think Dr. Wagner had told us that what people like the most is that the options that we offer in this district. So that was very enlightening to hear. So that's it. But thank you again for the opportunity, and also, like I said, to get it down to these 4 for a district of not only this size, but the many dynamics in this diversity. You all should be applauded as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Debbie Cummins, and I've been teaching at Snow Elementary School. I just finished my 26th year with the district, and I had 2 of the board members' kids. so it's
Fondly remember, I hope.
Yeah, seriously, honestly, how could I not? Adam was so adorable. Anyway, I've been here a long time, and I've seen a lot of changes in our district. And there are certain things that I feel that we need to have in a next superintendent. We need to have someone who is willing to collaborate with people, who is a good people person. They need to be able to sit down and discuss topics that are not always the easiest to discuss, in an educated way, in a compassionate way, and be willing to hear both sides of the situation. They need to work well with various groups because, as the gentleman before me talked about, we are a very diverse district, and they need to do it respectfully and honestly and be willing to be open to hear and work very collaboratively with those groups and definitely with all of you. Because if we have someone who isn't going to be a collaborative worker, we're not going to get anywhere. We need someone in this district who has an understanding of how it works and how each level of education is. They need to understand the elementary school level. They need to understand the needs of an elementary school student and a teacher and the concerns of elementary school parents. They need to also understand the transition for middle school in the same way as well as high school, because we're not going to get to the early college if we don't have the foundation that has been laid in elementary, middle school, and then into the high school. We're never going to get there if we have a weak link in our beginning. We need that foundation, just like you don't build a house unless you have a good foundation, because it will collapse. And we need a leader who understands the different levels, the different needs, and has experience in those. Not just book learning, but someone who actually understands it, has been there. And I've been here both nights, and I've listened to all four gentlemen, and every single one of them have positive points. Oh, gentlemen, and sorry, I forgot Ms. Shankman. But all four candidates. I've worked very long today.
It's a long day.
It's been a long day packing and cleaning. I'm exhausted. But every single one of them has a positive thing that they could bring to this district. And if you could mold them all together into one being, it would be phenomenal. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening. Out of all four of them, the only one who had spoke and used the word collaboratively over and over and over was Dr. Maleko. He was the only one who wanted your opinions and said he wanted to work with you over and over and over again. I like the fact that he wanted to hear from the students. You know, the kids have a lot to say. Kids are very intelligent these days. They have a lot that they would like to add. And he wanted to form groups, and he wanted to hear from them. I think that is phenomenal. I know that I've listened to all of you many times say that the kids need a voice, and that's something he wanted to do. He's had experience at all levels, elementary, middle, and high school. He's worked, as the gentleman said, he's worked on both sides of the district. He's seen the diversity of our district, and he's worked well in both of them. I did not hear any mentioning as much, well, I'm not supposed to say positives, okay. He's the only person I positively heard him mention elementary, and being an elementary person, that is so important to me. And I really think that he did a fabulous job. So I wanted to say that, and I will go back, and good luck, because I am so glad I'm not you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Board, for the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Roger Bartels. I'm a resident of Dearborn for some 47 years. I wasn't born here, but my wife was, and she's a product of Dearborn Public Schools. I've seen several, I've been working for the district for over 30 years, so I've seen several new board members and new superintendents. We've had a few. You have a real hard job in front of you. We need continuity. We need to keep the ship going, try to accelerate it. Things have been going rather well. I'd hate to see that get disrupted. You have 4 candidates that, if you strictly go by the interviews that you did here, all have attributes to bring. I think a couple of them have more of the attributes that will help us stay a steady ship and possibly accelerate the rate it's going. one of your candidates has done negotiations, which are coming up with your labor unions, and you have to maintain that working relationship. If it got adversarial, it could get to be a big mess. We have a candidate that is in-house, that has done that, along with working on both sides of the fence, management and blue collar. The other candidates are strong, one of them particularly strong. So it's going to make your decision tough, and I wish you the best of luck. But as I've sat on many of the interviews for principals and et cetera in the district as a citizen, and you rate them by the interview, I have a rating that I prefer, which is 1 and 3, if you're going to bring back 2 candidates. I think they are the strongest to what I've heard you say you want and what you're looking for out of them, and I think they would be the least disruptive in their styles and their abilities to get the job done. Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last call, anyone else? No? Very good. Then,
I'll take one.
ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, your turn to share with your colleagues on the board your thoughts and reflections on the candidates that you've seen. And again, you have the flexibility to speak to one or all 4. Entirely up to you.
Oh, you're gonna start with me?
You're the boss, however you want to go.
It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
I'm going to just very briefly just point out a positive about each one of them that I noticed. And I'm going to go in order. So I'm starting with Glenn. He's very calm, he's very respectful, and he has a tendency to bring people together. Next, Gail. She is the most productive person I've ever seen in my life. And Dr. Van Wagner, I think his experience at the state level would be a benefit, and with the legislator. I think that helped us in Brian's capacity and would serve us again. Dr. Wilson, he was a very interesting candidate. I liked his stories. I was impressed with how he was able to recover from some major challenges in his career.
I think that what makes this search a little bit more difficult is that when you have external candidates, everybody's on a level playing field because you don't know much about them. But in our situation, that's not true. I've got 15 years' experience with 2 of the candidates, and I can't just set that aside. So it makes it difficult. I'm trying to look at it from just the perspective of tonight, but in reality, that's not going to happen. I think that Rod had said something earlier that was incredibly true. Gail has done a lot of the grunt work. She is really an asset to this district. She does a lot of innovative things, and especially in the last 5 years or so, she's really grown a lot, but it's been behind the scenes, and so a lot of the general public doesn't see it. We probably see it a little bit more. Glenn, it's been amazing to watch him over the last 15 years and see the progression of his growth. The one advantage to that is that I see the potential because I've seen him grow from an assistant principal all the way through to, an HR director. And I've seen him take on challenges that I didn't think he would be able to take on, and he did them amazingly. And so I know that, if we were to make him our superintendent, that even if he didn't have experience in certain areas, that he would do whatever it took to make sure that he did. And so I see that trajectory. I don't think that this is the end per se. I think that he's going to continue to grow because he's just a natural learner, which would benefit the district tremendously. I liked, was it Mr. Wilson or Dr. Wilson?
Mr.
Mr. Wilson. I thought he was charismatic. I liked his stories too, and you know, there's something to be said for somebody who, you know, goes through very tumultuous times and comes out with their head held high. And I have empathy because, you know, I've been on a board for 15 years, and I know what it's like when the board is nasty and mean and backbiting and infighting, and it's not fun. And I wouldn't want to be at the helm when that is going on. And the fact that, you know, 5 superintendents in 5 years, that tells you more about the board than it does the superintendents. But I liked Dr. Wilson, Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson. What I really liked about him was his emphasis on the dual enrollment and the collegiate academy and those types of opportunities. You know, he didn't just mention it in passing, he mentioned it in passion. And that to me makes a difference. I don't want somebody who pushes through a program because they think they're supposed to push through a program. You know, if we're going to be spending money and resources and staff, you know, it should be something that everybody is really behind. And it seemed like that was something that was really important to him. I love that he's data-driven. I love that he was using information. We're trying really hard to get data-focused, and so I think that would be an asset to have. We already have a good start to bring somebody in there to light the fire and show us new ways of how to look at things, or just giving ideas of new ways to look at things. So I think that he would be an excellent choice, so I'll stop rambling. It's late, so I'm just rambling. Go ahead.
So this is obviously my first term on the board, and so I don't have the years of experience with our 2 internal candidates. I did, obviously, I had much respect for them, and I thought they did wonderfully. I think I was really impressed by Dr. Maleko's, just the packet in and of itself that he put together. It took time, it took effort, and it took how seriously he was taking this entire process. Not to say everyone else wasn't, but that stood out for me. And the level of support he has within with the teachers, with the community, that means something to me. I look at Dr. Shankman, and I see what the fact that she's been able to pull through these different programs that she's been assigned to do, and how she's been successful in that, and I respect that. But I also look at the external candidates, and because I don't have, I guess they're a little bit more of a level playing field for me because I haven't worked with the internal candidates as often. And I'll start with Mr. Wilson. I was very impressed by him. I really liked him. I liked his style. I liked how what he's done. And I think he would be great, but all things the same, I really like Dr. Wagner.
Van Wagner.
Von Wagner. His energy really got me. There was something about the energy and the way he talked, and the excitement he had, and the fact that he's gone through 10 of our schools. I think there's an advantage to being an internal candidate because you already know what's going on, you already know what the district looks like, and I think that the steps that both the external candidates took, I just happened to notice it a little bit more with Dr. Van Wagner. I was impressed by that, and that stood out for me, and I felt his energy, so. Yes.
Next.
All right, I'll go. I've known Dr. Maleko since his infancy here in the district because he was my daughter's student teacher in kindergarten at Oakman, his very first assignment. So I've known him from the very beginning of his career here. And I will tell you that, quite frankly, he's the exact same person who I knew then, almost 20 years ago, in 1996, as he is today in his style of connecting with the community. I always worried every time he made that next move because I knew him as the kindergarten teacher who everybody was confused by in my school because they'd never seen a male kindergarten teacher. As a matter of fact, I had to buy him a pair of socks for Christmas because I didn't know what you got a guy as a male kindergarten teacher. That being said, I've always
color?
had great respect for him because he was always passionate about what he was doing. And he came here with a commitment, and he has remained here this entire time, pursuing not only his career in our district, but also his own personal educational career. And he quickly moved into a position where he continued to grow, to educate himself, to embrace all the experiences that this district had to offer while earning his doctorate, and continue to remain committed to the community in a way that was quiet but respectful, and he always found ways to be innovative at whatever building he was at, and always his first priority was the success of the students. He never has failed from that, and even as an HR person, I think the decisions that he's made has always been to respect the staff, but in a way that he knew he was going to get the best out of them in the buildings for the students. Dr. Schenkman, I've known her for many years as well, and I do have to say that her ability to come up with programs, get them into practice, and to also recognize when they didn't work, which I always respected. If a program wasn't going the way that we had anticipated the results were going to be, she was willing to rethink it or pull it back and try something else. And she was always hanging in there, making sure that the best outcomes for these efforts were realized. I also have to agree that I was impressed tonight with Dr. Van Wagner's energy. He also clearly put in a lot of time and effort in getting to know and understand the district. He understood what kinds of resources we were using, what kind of tests we were using, what programs we had in place, what was going on at the college. And he was a dynamic personality that I think would be a tremendous asset in the relationship building department, that he could be a great team builder and had a wonderful sense of presence in the collaboration department. So I think he brings a lot of strengths there. And I also agree that his experience, he's got a broader depth of experience when it comes to having been at Lansing's level and understands some of the workings there. And now that we're going to have a state superintendent, those kinds of network bases could be very valuable. Mr. Wilson also, he clearly is a well-read individual. And I don't know where he found the time, and I also agree that he seems to be a steady personality that even in the face of difficult times, worked through them to the best of his abilities to resolve. And every once in a while you come to a point where you recognize that you've done all you can do and have to take leave of a bad situation and work your way into a new career choice. It sounds as if he's just as interested in remaining as a superintendent, would prefer to get back into the business, so to speak, and that's why he chose to look at this district, and it seems that he has a lot of interest in what our community has to offer.
Going once.
Three of us left.
Going twice.
I'll go.
Okay.
I'll keep it short. I basically agree with everything that's been said prior to. I'm in total agreement. The one thing that I can normally say that I've seen and done through these college president searches and the superintendent searches is usually I can write off one or two of them right at during the process. This time I can't. There were 4 strong candidates. I think any one that we selected would do the district well. in terms of strengths, I think they all have different strengths to offer. I was really impressed with what I heard from both candidates tonight, probably a little more so with Dr. Van Wagner than Mr. Wilson. So I would give him a little bit higher grades in my book, at least. But I also am more of a conservative person, and I think it's a safer bet to go with a known quantity with our other two internal candidates. I think Glenn has a tremendous amount to offer the district. He knows the district, he knows the community. He's obviously got a lot of support in the community just from the people that I've talked to here tonight. So I would be, if we wanted to be on the safe side, I certainly would prefer that we consider Dr. Maleko. And again, I agree with Dr. Schenkman, the comments made with her. She's tremendous in the position that she's in. I almost wouldn't want her as superintendent because we'd lose her in the position as associate superintendent and doing all the things that she does well for us now. But she does, she's a very productive person and does get things done when she puts her mind to it. So at this point, I guess I would be comfortable with all four, but I do have two favorites, 1 and 3.
You're not following the rules.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that my fault? It's okay. Okay.
We'll erase that part.
They're all strong.
I'll
though.
tell you what
They're
I
all
tell
strong.
my kids. Put on
What
the
time is it?
listening
It's
ears.
20 to 11. I'm normally
I'm
in
just
bed by this
teasing.
time.
I'm falling asleep myself, so I got you.
I mumble.
I could live with all 4 of the candidates. They're all obviously competent. They all know their business. They're all competent. I could work with any one of the 4. Dr. Maleko, my 2 top candidates are Dr. Maleko and the whiz kid, Dr. Van Wagner. They're clearly superior in my opinion, so I would advance those 2 candidates.
We should just forget the other process. Okay, you're up, that's it.
Well, usually when I'm listening to the candidates, I'm trying to think about, what are the commonalities? And from my perspective, I'm very interested in a candidate who is authoritative. I'm very, very tired of authoritarian personalities running school systems. And all 4 of these seem to be authoritative as opposed to authoritarian. So there's no difference there. The collaborative, however, I thought that Mr. Malenko was, or Dr. Malenko was very good in that. Well-spoken, they're all well-spoken. Inclusive, they're all talking about being inclusive. Gap closure, they're all worried about gap closure. Now, the thing is that who would I want to follow? Who would be the leader that I would really want to work with? And that's where the difference is for me. They're all team builders. They're all data-driven. They're all make decisions based on data. So all of these candidates are outstanding candidates. But who do I feel that I would want to work with the most? And who do I think can really lead the school for the future? I can't say who it is, right?
Well,
You're not
everybody else
supposed
did.
to.
Dr. Malenko.
Okay, so we've at least got through the discussion piece. And we're at the point now where we need to try to narrow this field. And I guess maybe just for some analogy, we're kind of like the bachelor or bachelorette, and we're at the final rose ceremony, where we're going to say to 1 or 2 people, you're going to stay on, we want to learn more about you, and to the others, we're going to say thanks so much for your interest. We greatly appreciate your willingness to put yourself forward for this kind of a position. And it's always difficult because, as you've seen, they all bring attributes that would be beneficial to the district. And the reality is that was my job, to try to put people in front of you that could do the job, and then to step back and let you determine which candidates would be the best fit for this school community. And that's really your challenge, I think. is to identify those leaders that are going to be best prepared to take your district to the next level. Those leaders that your school employee group across the board are going to be willing to follow to take the district to the next level. And so the process that I use to try to take a couple names off the board, and believe me, it's a function of my height as opposed to a function of those that I prefer, the size of the letters in the names. I noticed
Doesn't have
that,
anything to do with it being like 11
you know,
o'clock at
the
night.
later, the lower it gets on the paper, the smaller it gets. So here's how we're gonna go take 2 names off and not run the risk of losing any of the candidates through withdrawal. I want to poll you individually. I'm going to ask you simply, do you want to continue to consider candidate so-and-so? And you have 2 choices. You can tell me yes or no. If you tell me yes, I'm going to stop right there. On the first board member who says yes to a candidate, I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to go to the next board member and the next candidate. If that board member tells me yes, I'll stop there as well and move on. But if a board member tells me no, I will go to the next board member in sequence until all 7 of you tell me no, that you're no longer interested in pursuing a candidate. In that case, I'll take the name off the board. Okay? Our goal is to take 2 names off the board tonight. That's what we're going to try to do. Are you comfortable? You understand the process I'm going to use? Joe, you want me to say this again?
The one
probably doesn't matter.
I'm gonna screw it up
The one thing that I do want to kind of make known is that while it only takes 1 yes person to keep it on the board, if we don't narrow it down to 2, then when we think about the yes, we need to think about, I'm one of 7 people. I can be totally in favor of a candidate. If the rest of you aren't, it doesn't matter how many, I can be the holdout juror only for so long. You know, we don't want to get into a situation, especially considering that we really do have 4 capable candidates. I think that any one of these people that we put in front of us would be able to keep our district steering straight and progressing. So I don't want us as a board to get into a deadlock or lock horns over this process. So just think about that once we go down this process.
Just to add to what Amy has said, when it's all said and done, there's only going to be 1 superintendent. There's only going to be 1 of these people, and the successful person needs to get the support of at least 4 members of the board. So if we go through a process and 6 board members say, no, I'm not interested in pursuing that, and you're the 7th board member, and you determine to say, yes, you want to continue to pursue that candidate, what you're really saying is you think that you have enough strengths in terms of argument for that particular candidate that you can convince at least 3 other members of the board to change their mind before we get to the final process. Ideally, we want to come up with 7 yes votes when we get down to the final candidate. We want to be able to show the community and the candidate that the entire board is behind this person and is pledging their success. So what we're really striving for is a unanimous decision when that final decision is made. I know I'm messing you guys up.
You're all good.
I just can't stand still. I'm sorry. So let me begin if you're ready.
Yes.
And Mr. Weaver, I'm going to begin with you and simply ask you, do you wish to continue to pursue the candidacy of Dr. Glenn Malenko?
Yes.
Thank you. And so, Ms. Bazzi, I'm going to come to you next and ask, would you like to continue to pursue the candidacy of Dr. Gail Schenkman?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Lane, would you like to continue to pursue the candidacy of Dr. Schenkman?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Scholas, would you like to continue to pursue the candidacy of Dr. Schenkman?
No.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald, would you like to continue to pursue the candidacy of Dr. Schenkman?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Petchlikov, would you like to continue to consider Dr. Schenkman?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Mead, would you like to continue to pursue the candidacy of Dr. Schenkman? No. Thank you. So we're down
Forgot to
to
ask
3.
Joe.
I'm sorry?
You didn't ask
One
Joe.
more.
Joe.
Oh,
I'm sorry. No. Thank you. Appreciate it. So we've got 1 that we've said yes to and 7 that have said no to 1. So we've taken 1 name off. We need to try to get 1 more off. And so, Ms. Bazzi, let me start with you this time. Would you like to continue to pursue the candidacy of Dr. John Van Wagner?
Yes.
Thank you. Someone stop right there, and Ms. Lamb, I'm going to come to you and ask you if you'd like to continue to pursue the candidacy of Mr. Ron Wilson.
No.
Thank you. Ms. Scholas, would you like to continue to pursue the candidacy of Mr. Ron Wilson?
No.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald?
No.
Ms. Petchlock?
No.
Mr. Mead?
No.
Mr. Guido?
No.
Thank you. And Ms. Bezzi?
No.
Thank you. So that gets us down to 2 final candidates. That was almost painless. So we've got 2 final candidates. And again, this is your process, okay? You can do anything you want. It's your process. I'm going to try to facilitate that for you. Typically, as we've talked about in the past, the next step in our process would be to say, let's bring each of these 2 people back for a day in the district, let them meet with some stakeholders across the district, have perhaps an open reception for an hour in the early evening, so anybody in the community who wants to come and meet and greet can do that, and then a follow-up interview with the board, another hour with the candidates, after which the board would then make a determination as to whether or not you want to do a site visit to the home districts of those people, or do you feel you have the information you need to make a decision at that point.
Can I do the site visit to Glen Malako's district?
Yeah. Now, again, I just want to remind you, if you choose to do a site visit, I'm going to encourage you to do something more than take a tour of the district. I don't want you to wear a Century 21 gold coat and just be waltzed around the district. If you're going to do a site visit, I think it's important that you be able to meet with mirror image groups of the people that these candidates are going to meet here on that second interview. I want you to be able to have a chance to go meet with the teachers union president in the home district, and I want you to meet with the secretaries in that home district, and I want you to meet with 2 or 3 board members from that home district. And I want you to be able to say to them, when this candidate was here in the interview, they said they would do this, this, and this in Dearborn. Can you give me some evidence that they've done that in their current position? We know that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And so if they said they would do something here that they're not doing in their current district, that people cannot provide evidence for you of, the likelihood is good it's not really going to happen here either. So that site visit still takes the time, and it still means that you need to meet with those same stakeholder groups in order to have a fair and balanced situation for both candidates. So we know just from earlier discussion that different board members have commitments different nights of the week. Next week, what's your pleasure?
Well, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Since President Scholas is going to be out of town for the bulk of the week, if we were to do a site visit, you don't need you need only a few members of the board or a couple.
Yeah, typically it's
Can
only
we
2 or 3.
do would it be appropriate to do a site visit before the second interview?
You can do that if you choose to do that. The only thing you lose is the opportunity to gain additional information from the
To
candidate
ask
in
them.
that second interview, perhaps get some feedback from some of your stakeholders before you're asking a visiting team to look for evidence in their home district.
And unfortunately, I have work-related training that was scheduled 6 weeks ago for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. What is the pleasure of the board?
Thursday,
Guys,
most likely.
Thursday.
Well, I meant, do you want to do site visits?
There would only be one, obviously.
Yeah, it would only be one
There'd only be one.
Site visit.
site visit.
No, I'd want you to do 2.
Oh, would
No, you would need to do 2.
Well, we would need to do a site visit for Glenn.
Because it would be for a different purpose. So when you're speaking to people, you wouldn't be speaking to them about Glenn, the HR director. You would be speaking to them about Glenn, the potential superintendent.
The other thing
And I
that
think that there's
happens,
a difference.
the other thing that happens is when you have an external candidate and an internal candidate, and you give this external candidate a day to lobby, in effect, stakeholders across the district and a small group of people from the board for their candidacy, and don't provide that opportunity for your internal candidate to do the same thing, you have an unbalanced situation, and it's just really not fair. So if you're going to do site visits, I would strongly encourage you to do 2, 1 in each location.
If we chose to do site visits the following week, could we do a special meeting
On the
the
29th.
29th so that we
I won't
could-
be here.
Okay.
I thought that we would be wrapped up by then.
When are
you
you
leaving?
leaving?
The day after the
23rd.
22nd, so yeah, the 23rd.
You're leaving
22nd is Monday, right?
Yeah.
23rd.
Can we not do a site visit?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would prefer not to do a site
What is the format of the second interview?
Second interview, if you just do the second interview and don't provide the opportunity for stakeholder groups to meet with them, it would be an hour-long interview. In your binders that I've provided for you, there's some canned questions that you could draw from, but I would also think that there are some specific areas that you'd like to probe deeper with each of these two candidates before you're called upon to make a final decision. So if there are specific questions that you would like to ask that aren't obviously in that canned group of questions, send them to me and I'll compile them for you. Typically, it's only an hour-long interview, so you have time for about 14 to 15 questions in that format.
They can't be individualized questions,
Yes,
though.
they
They
can.
can, so you don't
Most
have to
definitely.
ask the
Not
same
yeah,
question?
at this
no.
level.
Okay.
After you get out of that first interview, you want to have everything balanced. Now you're going back and saying, reflecting on that first interview, there's more information that I need, and here it is.
Okay.
It's
Now,
not necessarily the same for both.
why couldn't we do the stakeholder meet and greets?
You could. You definitely could.
Okay. Because I think that's important.
Yeah,
we
I was gonna
should.
say, I really
I
would
think
like
that
to.
it's important that we have stakeholder meet and
Yeah.
greets for both candidates. I mean, and potentially we could do Dr. Maleko on Wednesday and
So what
and Ben
if,
Wagner the same, the same day as the interview, unless you did them both at the same time. I don't know how that works.
I've never done it this way before, but just given the calendar, what if, for example, we asked to do the stakeholder sessions for Dr. Maleko on Wednesday,
Yeah,
and defer the interview,
yes,
and then Thursday do the stakeholder sessions for Dr. Van Wagner, do Dr. Van Wagner's interview from 6 to 7, and ask Glenn to come back and do that second interview from 7:30 to 8:30 that same night.
yeah.
That way you would have had the stakeholder sessions with both candidates. You'd have an hour-long interview with both candidates. You'd have both final candidates' hour-long interview that same day. And typically, I would inverse the order of the interview. Dr. Maleko went first this last time, so I would typically say we should have Dr. Van Wagner come first for the
Which
interview
works
with
out
the
well
board,
for our timing.
and then Dr. Maleko. That would put you in a position where you'd done your second interviews, had all of your stakeholder sessions Thursday before your meeting on the 22nd. You could move on the 22nd if you determine you don't feel the need to do site visits.
Are board members encouraged or discouraged to come to the stakeholder meetings, or
I would
doesn't-
discourage you to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
From doing that. I
I've
think
never done that before.
I think the stakeholder people want a chance to be able to really get down to the nitty-gritty with each of these people and say, what's this really going to be?
And then how would we get that information from
They-
the stakeholder?
In your binders, under tab 4, the last page under tab 4, is a public comment form that we ask each of those participants to complete individually. We'll collect those at the end of those sessions, and ask Don to photocopy them for you, and we'll provide each of you a copy of all the comments from that day.
Okay.
I think it sounds like a plan.
I'm good with it. Let's do
I'm
that.
good with it.
I just had a question. After the interviews, does it end at 8:30 or is there an additional conversation?
If there's no site visits to occur,
Okay.
the board could at that time say, is there a motion? Does someone want to offer a motion to designate one of these two, our next superintendent, contingent upon the ability to negotiate a contract with them? Or the board may say, I want to sleep on this, and wait
We would
until-
still have information from the
till-
stakeholders that we haven't really looked at,
You
too.
would have that information hopefully by the time that those interviews begin.
Oh, okay.
I mean, typically, we'll collect them at the end of each session, bring them down to Dawn, she'll copy those, and so it's just pretty quick
Okay.
turnaround.
But whether we've had a chance to
Right.
read them.
And we can make that determination on Thursday.
Okay.
Yep, I mean, if you're not ready to make that decision, don't make that decision. Wait until you're ready to make that decision. This is the most important decision you're gonna make. I think it's important that you take the time that you need to be able to make that decision. Okay?
So,
I'm gonna
one extra meeting next week on Thursday, starting at what time, 6?
I would suggest you start at 6
6 to
o'clock.
7, and then 7:30 to 8:30. Okay,
Next Thursday.
next Thursday.
And I'll arrange for Dr. Maleko to meet with stakeholder groups. We'll probably start in the afternoon for those. And typically, I'm not present for that. And with Dr. Maleko's knowledge in the district, I don't think it's necessary to have anybody introduce him. We'll just give him the schedule and he'll meet with those people. We'll collect those forms and we'll get them duplicated.
Who
for
send out the
normally-
invitations to stakeholders?
I'll work with Don to get that done.
Who normally would be the one to facilitate that?
Normally, there's just somebody from the district who walks in and says, this is Dr. John Van Wagner. I'll be here Thursday to do that. We've got
Okay.
the interviews on
Okay.
Thursday, so I'll be here that day.
Okay.
But people know. who
Well,
Dr.
yeah,
Van
we can have somebody,
David or
Either.
somebody that could just pick up those
Yeah.
forms at the end on Wednesday. That
Yep.
would be great.
okay, wonderful.
Yeah. Okay,
We have a plan.
good job. Thanks. Questions from anybody?
Anyone?
Great.
Going once, going twice? Too late, I hit the gavel, you're done.
For the afternoon, and we'll schedule individual groups and we'll contact them. Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mike.
Amy, you can still tell me the stakeholders.